Welcome, everyone, to the May 1st meeting of the Brentwood Rotary Club. I am your honored president, Sarah Johnson, and welcome to our virtual meeting. I will tell you that I'm actually starting to get used to it. It's kind of neat to get to meet everybody, and Devin, thank you for the breakout sessions, and I got to experience my first one today, and it was a lot of fun getting to hang out with some of our great Rotarians. Wanted to say, and I'm not sure if he's on here or not, but wanted to say happy birthday to Bob Murphy. Today is Bob's, 35th birthday, and Bob, if you're on, happy birthday. I'm going, is Jim Ryan on by chance? Okay. Well, I am going to ask, let's see. Hang on, let me see who's here. I am going to ask Mr. Brian Goss. Brian, are you still there? Or did you leave us again?
I'm here.
All right. So I'm going to ask Brian Goss if he well, wait a minute. I'm going to ask Beth Dormany if she will lead us in our invocation, and then Brian Goss to lead us in our pledge and four-way test. Beth?
Sure, be happy to. Is my microphone on? Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, thank you. I'm calling from my car, by the way. Dear Heavenly Father, imagining all of the things you can do in and through us as fellow Rotarians during this unprecedented time seems overwhelming at best. Thank you for the love and camaraderie we all share through Brentwood Noon Rotary. Thank you for allowing us this time and technology to meet remotely, and we ask you to take care of each of our families, that you provide for those less fortunate, and that you bless our time together today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Beth. Brian?
Okay, let me, I do have a flag in here. It's not working really well, though. So join me in the pledge and the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, that's not easy. Okay, now the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First,
Is it the truth?
second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build
goodwill, better friendships.
And fourth,
Beneficial.
Thank you so much, Brian. We appreciate that. And now I want to open it up to anyone that has, well, first of all, I want to open it up. Do we have any guests or visiting Rotarians joining us today? Outside of our speaker, of course.
I have a guest.
Great. Would you like to introduce your guest, please?
Yes. So her hand's up. This is Review David. She is a current member of the Leadership Brentwood class, and I'm working through the signatures for her to apply for application. So yeah.
Great. Welcome. We're glad you're joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who else?
We also have Jay and Trent on the call from Perimeter Roofing. They've applied for membership as well.
Hey guys.
Well, welcome, Jay and Trent.
Good to be back.
Perfect. We've got some on-the-job training going there for, I believe, for.
Yes, we do.
All right. Any more? Well, all right. I'm going to open it up now for our Rotarians with Happy Bucks. If you would like, we go on the honor system here. So when we're doing Happy Bucks, when we get together, feel free to put some money in the collection plate, or If you want to send a check, Steve Passon is always welcome, or Drew Rogers is always loves to get checks. Who's happy?
I'll go, Stacy. Jason.
I'll
Hello?
throw in something. I'd like to say congratulations to Hunter McCarthy on his recent retirement.
Wow.
Congratulations, Hunter.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
I have 19 happy bucks, 3 for my daughter turning 3 yesterday, and 16 for my wife and I 16th anniversary today.
Happy anniversary. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I just want to comment on how relaxed Larry Faust looks in his home. He's
going to
Are
sleep.
you awake, Larry? You need to move around a little bit. I'm just saying.
I got
Are you
one
there?
eye. I got one eye open.
Okay.
I was afraid he was dead.
No.
Who else is happy?
Well, I'm happy because my wife and my daughter, we went out to Franklin Burger last night and just had a dinner out. So it was pleasant. It was it was Sopapillas and Franklin Burger are combined restaurants right now. So all the staff was masked up and doing everything proper, but all the clients in there eating were just like normal, and everybody seemed to be happy and about. So I'm grateful for that.
How are their burgers?
Get out and support your local businesses.
Awesome. Hey, Roger Wheelwright, could you give a little update on how you're doing?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Well, I had a CT scan today, and so I'll find out Monday when I see the doctor how I'm doing for my tumors. And but I've been going through chemo for the last 7 weeks. The first week I've had off in 7 weeks, so that's about my update. I will know more on Monday.
Well, you're in our thoughts and prayers, my friend.
Thank
We
you.
want you to stay safe. Is Bill McCarthy or John Stokes on by chance? I know John was listening in a couple weeks ago, so I'll call and get an update from them and report back next week, everyone. And want to check in on all of our Rotarians and make sure. Lynn McGill, are you on by chance? Well, I'll check on Lynn as well. Well, I wanted to go through a couple of announcements with everybody. Your board of directors met a week or so ago, and what we decided to do was to waive the fourth quarter dues for everyone. And part of the thought behind it is that we understand some Rotarians are struggling more than others, just because of situations going on in regards to the COVID-19. So what we're asking is, if you're past due on your balances, if you would consider using this time to catch up if you're able to. If you would normally, or your company would normally pay for your Rotary meeting, and you would like to consider doing a sponsorship for the golf tournament, we would love for that as well. But we're still deciding on the golf tournament to determine if we're going to have it in June or move it out later on in the year. And hopefully we'll be able to report back on that in the near future. So hopefully this will help our Rotarians out there. And I just really appreciate everybody working with us during our virtual meetings as we go on. We are really going to take this, everyone, as a month by month situation in terms of, are we going to come back together? We did a lot of discussion at the board meeting, and I believe we're going to probably still be in this atmosphere at least until June for now, because we just keeping our Rotarians safe is our #1 priority. And until we can have groups of 50 or more meet again, and then we all feel safe, that I just really feel is the best way for us to go forward. If anybody has any questions during this, please feel free to chat on the Zoom chat, and I'll be more than happy to answer any way I can. And so I hope that helps everyone. And with that, we.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
Sarah, this is Drew. A point of clarification. I think the dues holiday is actually a dues holiday for all full members for the fourth quarter. Rule of 85 members will still see an invoice for the first quarter meetings that they actually attended. So those meetings that were attended from January through March, Rule of 85 members will see the benefit of this on their next quarterly statement, because there won't have been any meetings throughout April through June. I just want to make sure that we clarify that.
I appreciate that. Scott Ewing, you've raised your hand. Do you have a question? Scott? Well, what we can do is, if anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to me after the meeting, and we'll update everyone at that point.
I have a comment.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
It's Roger Wheelwright. Why don't we, instead of just waiving those dues, write our check to the BCR, whatever it is, BRCCF? Because I know that we have not had a lot of fundraisers this year, and why not just donate the money to the BRCCF instead of just waiving it? Those that can pay, and those that can't, don't. Just makes sense, because that's those dues we normally do. And so just change where they go.
Absolutely. That's a great suggestion, and I know that's very much appreciated. Thank you, Roger, for that. And I do feel like a lot of our Rotarians will. We want to do what's fair to all concerned, so that's kind of why we came up with this idea to help everyone. But absolutely, you can get the tax write-off if you choose to give money to the BRCCF. I know it's very appreciated. So thank you for mentioning that, Roger.
You're welcome.
Who else has questions? All right. Well, I wanted to also let you guys know that the classification committee met this week, and they have 2 applications that have gone through process. So look for your reflections in the next couple of weeks. And they will be mentioned so we can induct some members, we hope, in the near future. I know there's some other members coming through the pipeline, so we look forward to introducing everyone as time goes on. With that, I'm going to turn our program over to Keely Hall to introduce our speaker.
Hey, morning.
Keely, you're on mute, my friend.
All right, let's try that. How about that? Now? Okay. All right, so Kem Hinton is an architect lead accredited professional, urban designer, author, historian, graphic designer, photographer, lecturer, and visual artist. Clearly, Kem is having trouble deciding what he wants to be when he grows up. He received his professional education from the University of Tennessee, University of Pennsylvania, and l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. That's 6 years of French in elementary school coming at you, right down the pike there. All right. In 1984, Kem and Sieb Tuck established Tuck Hinton Architects, and there he was responsible for award-winning projects, including the renovation expansions of 2 homes designed by the celebrated mid-century architect Edwin Keeble, and numerous civic and educational facilities, including Tennessee State University Campus Center, Vanderbilt University Undergraduate Admissions Building, Tennessee World War II Memorial, MTSU Sports Hall of Fame, that's for you, Devin, Woodmont Hills Church of Christ, Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church, Vanderbilt University, Buttrick Hall, Tennessee Gulf Wars Memorial, Ingram Science Building at Montgomery Bell Academy, Tennessee Aquarium IMAX Center, and the Civil Rights Room in Nashville's main public library. And I'm glad to have a breath there. All right, Kem was also the lead designer of the Tennessee Bicentennial Capitol Mall and author of A Long Path, The Search for a Bicentennial Landmark. He is lead designer of 2 projects that will be completed in 2020, the new $100 million Tennessee State Library and Archives, and a unique space in the Nashville Main Public Library to honor the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. He is a member of the American Institute of Architects College of Fellows, alumnus of Leadership Nashville and Leadership Middle Tennessee, and board member of the Downtown Nashville Rotary Club. On January 1st, 2019, Kem and Sieb passed their torch of their firm to our other partners, and Kem now practices in his new studio of Kem Hinton Design. Ladies and gentlemen, I now give to you Kem Hinton.
Thank you so much. I'm going to try to immediately go to the PowerPoint. Can everybody see that now?
Yes.
PowerPoint's up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the speaker's view, Kim. But if that's okay with you, I'm sure it's okay with everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's seeing the word Nashville, the presentation, right?
Yes.
Everybody. Well, great. Well, listen, thank you so much for having me here. Greetings from the Downtown Nashville Rotary Club. You know, in a way, all bets are off about kind of civic design and Nashville design right now. It's an exciting and terrifying time. And so I had prepared this presentation and given it to several groups in the past year and wanted to share it with your group. Thank you so much for having me here. And the topic of this is Nashville. What is our civic design, and what is kind of something called the public realm that I'll talk about. And what are we becoming? What is the city? And of course, if we're talking about Nashville, as that certainly includes the surrounding areas. Let's see, next slide. Well, let's see. No, it's not. Okay, yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. See if this works. Our history is something that makes Nashville very unique, and I should just tell you up front, I've got kind of a disclaimer. What I'm going to share with you today are my opinions and independent observations, mainly just sharing with you my thoughts about how Nashville is growing and changing, and with recent stuff, a lot of that, all bets are off. But as a disclaimer that I'll be sharing wonderful images from a variety of sources. So, to say the good, the bad, it's mostly good. It's mostly good, but we'll just have a good time talking about our city and the surrounding areas. You know, this is a photo of Nashville from the Civil War days, and off in the distance you see the state capitol. When it was finished right before the Civil War, it was the largest and tallest building in the southeast United States. A tremendous accomplishment. And for most of Nashville's history, the state capitol was something. It was kind of the centerpiece of our city. There were some areas that were not so nice around the state capitol, particularly the northwest corner, loosely called Hell's Half Acre, kind of a very rugged area, and particularly directly west, were just slums in the downtown area in this part of the city. One of the reasons is it was kind of a floodplain, and there were other dilemmas with it. in the 1950s, Nashville was the location of the first really large urban renewal project in our country. And basically, they cleared everybody out. They built public housing, and they established what we know as James Robinson Parkway, the sort of grand boulevard that weaves around the north side of Capitol. And it was, I call it the atomic weapon equivalent in urban design because it did a lot of stuff really fast, boom, and then we're dealing with the kind of the results afterwards, some of which are good and some of which were tragic. But the state capitol remains this beautiful structure. I think it's the most important building in our state. Of course, it was so tall, but then in the 1950s, the LNC Tower was erected. This is Edwin Keeble, who's probably our finest architect from the 20th century. And again, it was the tallest building in the Southeast United States. I still think that it is by far the most beautiful skyscraper ever built in Nashville. And of course, now it's surrounded by buildings you can hardly see it. You know, planning for Nashville has gone on since it was founded. And there have been lots of different plans. In the 1960s, there was a proposal to sort of wipe out all the stuff on historic Second Avenue and put in a lowered road along the Cumberland River. So people have been considering planning for Nashville for many years. In 1991, we were part of a group that looked at designing, sort of rethinking of the downtown, what we call Center City. And in the middle image, you see kind of the funny shape that has the glass roof on it. That ended up being the location of what we recommended was the location for the new downtown arena, now the Bridgestone Arena. So there were a lot of plans being done. That was an official plan done by the city, but there's also been planning by people and groups just really interested in Nashville. The Nashville scene, in particular, during the past couple of decades, has been really, really involved in what should Nashville be. And in 1997, they commissioned an completely independent study for this area south of Broadway. And, you know, they named it Sobro. And it was a fascinating story. And here's a picture. It's hard to see, but the guy in the older guy with long hair, kind of like Rumpelstiltskin. This is a guy named Stroud Watson. He came to Nashville to head up this planning effort. It was just an independent effort to kind of show city officials what could be done. It resulted with this diagram. The state capitol is at the upper left, and it proposed this interesting thing, this road that would be, now it's called Vietnam's Koreans Veterans Boulevard, that it would be a road, but not a highway, not an interstate, but a beautiful boulevard. And you can maybe see in the middle, there's a circular element that's a roundabout. That's what Stroud recommended. We thought, gosh, a roundabout in Nashville? We had done some at the Bicentennial Mall, very small ones, but traffic officials just kind of laughed down in the room. But then it happened. And so that roundabout, I don't know if I go around it frequently, and it works great. And but it was hard to make that accomplished. So anyway, so the planning of Nashville is going on. It's been an exciting time for Nashville. You know, we have so many skyscrapers, and of course the war between all the new hotels, and of course Bridgestone and other buildings that are kind of very prominent with their names at the top. If you haven't been, I recommend you visit the new State Museum, which was finished before Governor Haslam left office. Wonderful collection. There's a new Metro jail that's supposed to open, I guess, in some form or fashion across from the Metro Courthouse. There's an enormous project called Nashville Yards that's directly across the street from Union Station between Broadway and Church. And then there's the new federal courthouse. This is going up right beside the downtown public library. See a photograph of the rendering on the left. On the right side is a photograph of it under construction. But I want you to look back at the rendering on the left side. You see kind of the middle, that kind of dome-like thing in the middle between the two towers. That's an entrance pavilion that you can walk into, and it's designed so it can blow up without destroying the rest of the building. Seriously, that's a safety concern that federal courthouses have. But the shape of that thing, to me, is it's kind of interesting. It reminds me of this house of worship in Illinois. I'm not quite sure how the association worked. The new stadium is underway, soccer stadium. It looks like it's going to happen. And there's new Four Seasons Hotel planned for the downtown right on the river. And then finally, most of us know about the quarry-like place that was on Broadway, nicknamed Lake Palmer. And finally, those two, that large site is being filled in, and it is going to be quite an interesting development. So here's Nashville in the 1950s, and now is Nashville today. Incredibly different. So are we going too fast? You know, people around the country, you know, it's a city of cranes, it's envy, but is it too much too fast? Let me back up, you know, and there's a cost to this. In the 1970s, a book came out about future shock, the fact that things are changing so quickly. And of course, that's been going on with Nashville, the speed, prices of real estate, everything. It's been a wild ride. Are we the next Atlanta? A lot of people, a good friend of mine, Steve Worrell, a real estate developer and owner of a lot of properties, says, he doesn't say, are we? He says, we are. So is that important? Well, I mean, it's a thrilling time, and there's a lot of good business and stuff. I'll come back to our dilemma right now. But one of the things about Nashville is, of course, we do have historic buildings, and we have 6 historic landmarks. Those are the most important designation of any structure in our country. It's a label, it's a term, and an award. We only have 6, and those are the 6. But we got a lot of historic buildings. It gives kind of a neat fabric to our city and sort of the heritage of the city, the way it feels. There's been a lot of work on keeping buildings useful. The Cordell Hall building was recently completely renovated for the state government. There are modest buildings like this, Benny Dillon and the old Castronaut building, where they've changed the use of them, but they kept the buildings. And it sort of reminds us where we came from. Even a little building like this, the Burger Building on 8th Avenue, Rosa Parks, is, it's a cute building. It's useful. And the things like this, the cotton mills that became the Marathon Village, when the guy that saved that development, people thought he was crazy because it was located surrounded by slums, and now it's become this incredibly cool place to visit. If you haven't been there, I recommend it. Federal Reserve building that's beside near the state capitol was sold, and it became an apartment complex. And then the Ben West Library downtown, Hastings Architecture purchased the building and they made it into their offices, and they did a fabulous job. That was a building by Taylor and Crabtree, probably their finest building in the mid-1960s. Something like this, the May Hosiery Mill, which was built from the late 1800s up until the 1940s. And it's really interesting, a building like this, it has clear span joists, so it allows a lot of flexibility in the floor plan. There are no columns in that space. It's very, very flexible for use. Even modest structures like this that have been preserved, this makes our city, it reminds us of the character of the place. And even structures like this, the downtown structures, that both of which have become hotels, really nice hotels. And then there's this, the Sudekin building. This is on Church Street. Unfortunately, a developer purchased this land, had the Tennessee Theater in part of it, and it's just a beautiful Art Deco building by Marn Holman. And it was replaced with this, which I consider the finest example of Soviet architecture in the United States. What a wonderful addition to the skyline. And this happened, the Lifeway Sullivan building, when it was originally built, this is part of the Baptist Sunday school, development and operation that used to be in this part of the city. This building was at the end of Commerce Street. Now, it sort of terminated Commerce Street, but they moved the street. That's why you see it in the photo to the right. They bent the street around and made it much wider. But it's a really interesting Art Deco building. a lot of prominence to it. It could have been changed into apartments, could have been changed into offices, something, condos, whatever, a hotel. But no, part of the development, and this was creepy to me, they covered it with black felt, and then they murdered her, you know, and to me that was really sad, totally unnecessary. But on private property, you get to do what you want to. Is this, you know, that's the way we work. So is that bad? Well, I think it's sad. And there's not much we can do about it because it's on private property. We have a style in Nashville. Well, I show this image because this is kind of fun. This is a very high-tech, anytime like banker thing, an ATM. But what is the image on the side? It's a bar. That's kind of interesting. Nashville has always struggled with what its style is. You know, the Symphony Hall is fabulous, fabulous facility, but you know, it kind of looks like it was designed in the 1930s and not in 2006. Our firm had the opportunity to do the Freshman Music Hall of Fame. You know, a lot of people thought we were on drugs when we designed this, and maybe that still holds true. It's certainly a different type of expression. Vanderbilt is dealing with where they're going in their architecture expression. It's a big deal. They're tearing down these not so attractive tall apartments, student apartments on West End, and they're replacing it with this, which is collegiate Gothic style, which is really a beautiful style. Although the tower on the right side, that's a, you know, you can see a lot of effort is made to make it look very, very old, and that is not an inexpensive process. They're actually going to build a tower right beside the other tower I just showed you, and it's going to be an academic tower, and it reminds us of something, reminds me of something beautiful in Pittsburgh. You know, is that the best style for Vanderbilt? You know, it's their business, and that's where they're going. Do we have modern architecture? Yeah, a few styles. There are a few buildings around Nashville, but the one I see most is kind of this strange thing. It's like a Dutch interpretation. It's all over. Usually white has these kind of round Dutch influence. They're all over Nashville, and that's, you know, how did that happen? I don't know, but that's kind of a thing. I mentioned the public realm, and I want to talk about that as we wrap this up. You know, public realm really means it's what we own as citizens. It's what we have control of. It's owned by the government, but it's, you know, ultimately it's really owned by all of us. And of course, there are wonderful places in our city. This was during the eclipse. Wasn't that a fabulous day? That eclipse was so cool. And then the Bicentennial Mall, of course, that's owned by the state, not by the city, but it's a public place. Public Square in front of the Metro Courthouse, our firm had a chance to design this space, and it was, feel very proud about it. It replaced the surface parking lot. Really, the public realm, though, are the streets. They're where we drive and where we walk, and those are owned by all of us. And it's important how they're made, how they're designed. You know, try to make them attractive. This is a part of Nolensville Road, not real attractive, but because of the trees and kind of the spacing, you feel very comfortable walking down a sidewalk like this, or I do, as opposed to what's directly across the street. I mean, directly across the street is this. And let me tell you, it's no fun to walk along something that's just so darn ugly. And Nashville spent a lot of money on these types of enhancements. Kim Hawkins' group did this connector that's over near the Parthenon. And we got some challenges. One of the challenges was a public space downtown. It's Church Street Park. Now, this was built very quickly in the right in 2001. And the developer was trying to do a kind of a con job to get the land, and he was going to trade it for the sort of green space in the middle of the big circle for that kind of weird triangular space in the upper circle, which is like one block beside Public Square. Well, we don't need two parks, one little one, one big one right beside one another. But Church Street Park was a disaster. It was a disaster when it was designed. It was poorly designed, and it's become kind of this terrible problem in the middle of Nashville. And the same developer that gave us the beautiful Cumberland condominium, wonderful Soviet architecture, wanted to purchase this, and turn it into a tower, and he was going to do a land trade. But of course, people look at this and think, well, we need to get rid of this park. It was just poorly designed, and that doesn't need to be the case. If the right designers are hired, it could be like these places, particularly Paley Park, which is one of the most beautiful places in our country. It's just, it has to be designed well. So, of course, we were encouraging the mayor to invest in that park, and that bet is off. You know, that ain't gonna happen. You've got residential boom this year, and you've seen these things, you know, the buildings that occur on all kinds of hillside properties with a view of the city. You know, some of them really creative, this type of housing and different structures and different homes. But there's all this comment about something called the tall skinny. You guys know what tall skinny is, right? Well, I looked it up on the web. This is a tall skinny. But the tall skinnies have invaded Nashville, and it's because properties are very narrow, and yet you can go up in height. But it causes kind of weird relationships, particularly in historic areas where you have a nice sort of cottage-like forms and then a 3-story brick thing. Is that good for Nashville? Well, it's happening. And of course, another radical alternative is going to be tiny homes, and whether they really show up or not. There's some examples of these used for homeless. But the one I'm really excited about that's going to get here very quick are 3D printed houses. Now, this may seem really weird, but this is going on where people set up it's kind of a factory that does 3D printing of a house. And you think, is this going to happen in Nashville? Count on it. I'm not sure when, but there it is. And these things are pretty cool, and they're very, very efficient and can be built really fast. So those are on the way. So we've got some great things going on. Heritage of our city, public parks. So the public realm is in good shape. So is there a vision? Is there a vision for our city? Well, there's a group called the Nashville Civic Design Center that kind of came about after the Sobro report. And this group is in charge of trying to nudge city officials to do good things and for the private groups to do good things. It doesn't have any teeth. It doesn't have the force of law, and that's a problem. They prepared a book called The Plan of Nashville in 2005. This is an incredibly good book, thorough, and so many people involved. You can see all the names in the background of the people involved in doing this, and almost all of them are volunteers. They sort of establish some things that we ought to remember as our city grows. And one important thing is the state capitol. Back to state capitol. That views of the capitol should be preserved and should be enhanced. You know, it's a beautiful structure. When you see it from the public library, although that street's not very interesting, but you know that the building has value because it does, because of the way the streets are configured and the way buildings are configured. To the north, we did that from the Bicentennial Mall to exalt the capitol and give it a grand vista both to it and from it. This also occurs to the east side of Nashville. When you come in from Main Street, off in the distance, as you approach the Capitol, you can see it way off in the distance. And that's wonderful because, you kind of have that vista. And that could have occurred to the west of the Capitol where all these slums existed. And in the Plan of Nashville, the book, this image came about, which is Keith Covington, wonderful image of a magnificent view of the state capitol from the west. Well, that didn't happen. Instead, we got this called Capitol View. And Capitol View, this is an overall illustration of it, a huge development, and you see the Capitol way off in the distance. But it's called Capitol View, but it doesn't provide a Capitol View. It kind of ruins the Capitol View. I mean, you can see it around the corner, but it's funny that the thing named Capitol View actually removed that view from the interstate and from other parts west of the city when it could have enhanced it. Why did that happen? I don't know. And the real concern, I guess, was the old Nashville Convention Center. I was totally in favor of the redevelopment of the old Nashville Convention Center. When it was built, it worked well, and then built a new center. And so the city put up an opportunity for private developers to buy the property buy the property, which is directly across the street from the arena, and completely transform it. Great opportunity for our city. But there was something about next door called a Ryman, okay? And is the Ryman part of an important part of our city heritage? I think so. It is actually the first billboard you see when you're leaving the Nashville airport, first one, these views. Now, this is a photo I took when the convention center, the old convention center, was being built in 1985. And you get to see the entire facade. This is the Mother Church of Country Music. But at that time, they were going to tear it down. Some newer residents in Nashville can't believe it, but the Ryman was just barely saved. It was going to be torn down. They built a new Opry House at Opryland, and nobody wanted to keep the building. It was kind of, it was in terrible shape. Get rid of it. So you see, the Nashville Convention Center, when it was built, it almost ignored the Ryman. It came right up to Fifth Avenue, and just, it kind of squished the view. But the Ryman is one of our only 6 landmarks, and awesome architecture, fabulous. But you can't really see it because the convention center was so close across the street. Difficult to appreciate. So what do? Well, back to the plan of Nashville. They showed this idea that we would build a plaza across the street from the Ryman when the old convention center is gone, which people thought, was going to happen. And we would end up with something that exalts the Ryman. And that did not happen. And that's really sad because the property was owned by the city. And when it was sold, it should have had some regulations or some requirements. But at the time, the folks in the mayor's office wouldn't push on it. They basically just wanted to get rid of the dirt and let somebody redevelop it. Megan Berry was the same thing. She would not, wouldn't get involved in trying to do something that I think would have been one of the most wonderful places in our city, a urban a plaza, public plaza that would honor the Ryman. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about places like this, public spaces. You've all been there, Hope. Even the Russians in the bottom right corner, they know how to exalt their own buildings. The Russians know how to do it. And we do it in our country, Lincoln Center, State Capitol, Legislative Plaza, Public Square, even in front of the Alamo in San Antonio. Americans know what to do, and these are either public or private, mainly public spaces that are fabulous. We want to go there. We want to stand there. We want to enjoy the buildings. And that could be done on public property across the street from the Ryman. But it wasn't. And I dealt with the developer on this and couldn't convince him to do it differently. And the Civic Design Center got involved and said, wait. The view you see there to the left is the proposed view within that new development. I'm not against the redevelopment. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. It's just how it was done. In fact, they made a cartoon about Peekaboo Ryman, like, hey, a national landmark is nearby, And the idea was, instead of having the development has a road that goes through it that's too wide, instead of that, the idea was to have a plaza across from the Ryman and actually not make it a road, but we would allow fire trucks to come into that plaza from Broadway, but you would have steps on the east side of that plaza, like the Spanish Steps in Rome, something like that. So what you're getting, what's been built, it's there now, was this kind of tepid response to the Ryman with a little pushback area. You could have had this. You could have had this. And let me tell you, there was some real kickback when we were fussing at the mayor and other folks about, that this needs to be rethought. The mayor just backed away; she wouldn't get involved. And the developer said, "Well, Mr. Hinton doesn't understand. You got to make the deal work." Well, look, I'm an architect. I know how these things work. You can rearrange the jello on any site and end up with the exact same square footage to make the deal work. So it's on previously public property. We did this, side swapping the Ryman. When we could have had this. Okay, let me show you. This is what you're getting. This is what you could have had. Could have had on public previously public land. It was bad in the 1980s, and it's bad now. March the 1st, I took this photo before everything sort of changed, our city changed. Is it bad? Well, I think it's the worst urban design blunder in modern city history. And I say that with, I know so many people involved in designing the building and engineers and everything, but with some courage and with some requirement, it could have been so much better. There is a great part of the development, though. This is really going to be exciting, and I don't want to end up on a sour note on 5th and Broad, because they have a new Museum of African American Music. It's going to be, I think, fabulous. However, the original scheme had the entrance on 5th Avenue, which is kind of steep at that part of the street, and no access on Broadway. Well, a lot of people, including Erica Gilmore and many other city officials, they basically said, no, we've got to have an entrance on Broadway for this new museum. And they basically pushed. And, guess what happened? There's now an entrance on Broadway. And that sort of shows you that we can get involved in issues like this, all of us, and express our approval or our disapproval or our opinions and speak to, officials about this. I don't think new Mayor Cooper would have ever allowed this development to insult the Ryman the way it's going to. And also now we've got this exciting new museum that will have an entrance on Broadway. And remember Fort Negley, the whole issue with that. Again, Megan Barry was involved in pushing the development of the site, which made no sense. This is one of the most important historic areas, incredible fort built during the Civil War. I mean, look at this image. This is the way it really looked. I had no idea it was so enhanced and developed and beautiful and a historic place. It's fallen into, disrepair. And this was the proposal for it. And thanks to Page Duke Architects and the widow of the South author, Robert Hicks, they just raised an uproar and they stopped it. And instead, we might get this eventually, which is certainly superior. I mean, I don't think anybody would really want the other thing versus this. And that's because people got involved. So what do we got as future? And I'll hurry this up because traffic, right? Okay, the transit thing didn't pass. So what's going to happen next? That is a real challenge. Is where are we going, and how is our city going to change? And of course everybody's saying, well, we got a lot of traffic, we got to deal with things, we have different types of cars, different types of roads. Futurists are looking at things like this, and whether that really happens or not, who knows? But very smart people around the world are trying to figure out transit solutions, and that really applies to Nashville and connecting, Brentwood and Franklin and Wilson County. And oh, by the way, we've got this new thing, self-driving cars. There's an image from the 1960s about it. Would that ever happen? Oh, yes. It is all over Pittsburgh. My son was in school at Pittsburgh, and I visited him a couple of years ago, and there they are, the self-driving cars. They're all over town, running around, and, they got somebody sitting in the front seat just in case of an accident, but they're showing up. And little structures like little vehicles like this, they're on the way. In fact, in China, they already have bus service around some of the airports, and buses pull up, you get in, the drive away, there's no driver. It's on the way. Transit creates opportunities, and people swoop in, and we ended up with the scooters. You're supposed to be 18 to be on one, but this family said, okay. And then we had problems. So the opportunities, the scooters allowed a lot of interesting transportation around the city, but it kind of got out of hand. Well, then there's the Jetsons. Anybody remember this, the cartoon, the Jetsons? Okay, what did it have? Flying cars. And Dick Tracy, which I loved in the 1960s, a flying sort of bucket air car. Is that science fiction? No, it's not science fiction. This guy with his flyboard kind of stunned the country in Bastille Day on July 14th. And, it's no joke. He crosses the English Channel in this vehicle. So are these vehicles showing up? Will they be flying around Nashville? Count on it. It's going to happen. It may be these versions, these are autonomous or just small flying cars. One bottom is actually autonomous, like there's no pilot, it just flies itself. And you know, this would be pretty weird, wouldn't it, for Nashville, flying around? Well, let me tell you how that works. This is Fifth Avenue in 1900, Fifth Avenue. Almost everything you see in the photograph are horse-drawn vehicles. 1900. 13 years later, all cars, 13 years. So is 2020 and 2035 or in 2030, we have these, you know, possibly. And that's exciting and terrifying because our ultimate destiny, what our city is like, and will history even matter? You know, the future from Blade Runner and from other things where people are trying to think the future. And that's sort of, I think, was crazy at the time, but I'm not so sure anymore.
Well, Kem, our time is up.
Wait, one more image.
One more image.
Beyond Wonderland, Broadway. And then all bets are off. So thank you for listening and the opportunities for the city.
Well, thank you so much for being our speaker today. We really appreciate you being here with us, and we're all going to give you virtual clapping. And we really appreciate seeing the past, the present, and the future. It's amazing how far we've come in such a short amount of time. It seems like 100 years. It's just amazing. Thank you all for being with us today on our Rotary meeting, our Rotary virtual meeting. I wanted to remind all of the board members that we're going to have a brief board meeting after this, so please stay on the Zoom meeting and we will continue from there. And we are actually working on a reoccurring Zoom meeting so that it'll be the same information every time. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, we're adjourned. Thank you all.